Oh my God. It's on. Oh my God. That hook's in there. This one's not that big. Fish on. Woo. That one's big. It's too big. Oh, we did it.
Look at that. Before we go any further, that mag seal has seen a lot of exposure. Yeah, there's a lot of grit in there. Oh yeah, there's a lot of grit. A lot of schmoo, a lot of grit, a lot of stuff. So that tells me right off the bat that it did its job. When you turn the handle, the main gear is always trying to push out away. So that gear mesh, these are all supposed to be rigidly held in alignment. When you turn that handle under load, the main gear is going to want to roll out and push away from the pinion. The frame is the only thing that's keeping that from happening. You got the frame and side plate here. It's going to want to push out. It's going to want to separate. It's going to want to flex outwards. He did not experience any of that. So when you're fishing a reel that you feel flex, there's two different kinds. The flex that happens here, when you kind of feel it, it feels like crap. It doesn't feel like a good sensation. It feels like your reel's made out of rubber. Gentlemen, ladies, and anyone in between, I welcome you all to my review of the Daiwa FUEGO LT. Now, I want to start off this review by addressing the 800-pound gorilla in the room, and that's the fact that I've put out quite a bit of content over the past year that has featured Daiwa products. And in the past as well, I've made mention that I am on the Daiwa VIP program, which entitles me to discounts. I want you guys to be 100% comfortable with the fact that what I say has no bearing on whether affect discounts on the product or not. As a matter of fact, my last two orders through Daiwa, this 2 orders ago was when I ordered all the LT reels. They screwed up the order and sent me all the wrong gear ratios, and then they didn't want to actually correct the order. The most recent order I placed, they overcharged me without my authorization, and I still haven't seen that money put back in my account. So just because I'm on a discount program doesn't mean it's smooth sailing, and it's not like Daiwa really has a clue as to what I do. Otherwise, they would have figured I might bring it up in a video and make them look bad. Although it's not my intention. I'm just kind of throwing it out there just to give you an idea. And on top of that, I'm not going to base my review solely on this pristine mint condition reel that's been fished about 20 times and has no line on it. I'm going to base it on a reel that, according to Elias, is dead. And the last I heard of this reel, he had rolled his kayak in the surf, and it had locked up, but it was dying a slow and painful death for the weeks leading up to that rollover. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to crack the box, and we're going to see together just how bad this reel is. And it's worth mentioning, he's been fishing this reel since June. It's now the middle of November. So fast forward 5 months, and it still was alive. Here is a Cast King. I think this is a Kodiak or a Sharky 2. I don't even know. Is there something on it? Kodiak. And it barely lasted 2 months with him. So just to give you an idea of how much abuse he sprinkles on the fishing gear. So I'm going to go ahead now and crack this box over. So this has been sitting, stewing in its own juices for over a week. And the reason why I let it sit is I had a Daiwa Epixor that I sent down to Elias that I had kind of taken apart and greased the way I grease my surf reels, just to see if the cheaper Epixor, if you just grease certain points, would outlast the Fuego. Unfortunately, yeah, he dropped it overboard today, actually, let me know. So that sucks. So that experiment is currently on hold. And this is the box I sent to him. So I assume, what's going on in here? That's just not lovely. Oh, this is the handle I sent him. He said he kept the handle. And the little bit of grease here is from when I sent it down to him, so that's why that, okay, that makes sense. So he kept his 3000 size handle, kept the 2500 Epixor that I sent him, sent back his 3000 sized FUEGO LT with my handle. And yeah, it's it's a reel, all right. But get an up close look at this. So you got some bunker goo up in there, or some sort of fish slime that found its way. You got some fish scale remnants right here from past victims. Let's see if the bail trip works. That seems to kick over fine. That line roller looks like it's not in a good mood. Let's see. Yeah. So you know what? Why not start with that? Let's go ahead and take a peek, shall we? And again, this reel was being fished hard since June. And his previous Fuego he had, this is his second one, he was catching the crap out of tarpon with it, which is not something I would assume you would want to use a Fuego for, especially a little 3,000 size reel. But some of you kayak fishermen out there are pretty nuts. All right, so you see this? That coating, that's just layered salt and mineral deposits from salt water, mixed with probably some of the dye pigments from braids. And it's one of those things that, yeah, it's kind of preventable at that location. You can actually just take a little dropper bottle like the vape juice bottles and put some Corrosion X oil in it, or some TSI 321. And, you know, once every couple of days, just take it before you start the day off. Usually it's best to do it before you go fishing, because that way you put the drop of oil on there and you make a couple casts and the oil works its way in. And if you want, the day that you do that, do it at the end of the trip too. Just don't do that on some of the Shimano bearings that have some of the seals and the mag seal Daiwa bearings. So it's not horrible. I mean, who am I kidding? That's better. And we'll compare that to one that's only been fished in freshwater. How's that for a difference? Wait, is this... Crap, that's the ballistic. Never mind. The paint jobs are so similar. My bad. Now, it's worth mentioning for you guys that buy this reel, say if you're buying the 2500 size, at least I know for me personally with the 2500 size, I had to adjust the shimming out of the box, which does not happen often. I spooled up this reel with Fireline 14-pound test, with 30-pound test J-braid, and this Fanatic Pro 30. And you can see that's the line lay out of the box. You know, it came out perfect. This was a mess out of the box with 6-pound test Fireline ultralight. And I had to, if I remember correctly, I had to remove a shim, or add a shim, I can't remember. But there's a little clear washer down in there. See that little clear washer right there? That's a pain in the ass to get off. Even for somebody like me who tears down reels on a pretty regular basis. So for you guys out there that get the reel spooled up by hand and it's not laying line right, it's a shimming issue out of the box, which again, you don't see that very often on Shimano reels. Shimano Nascis, as an example, that come in right at the same price range, who are very similar in regards to how they're put together. You won't have that issue with the Nasci, but the Fuegos, I've seen it, and I've seen in the comments below as well that some have had issues with line spooling. Just throwing that out there, and let's see how the drag seems perfect. This has seen some nice fish, so it's not like he's just catching smallmouth bass like me and largemouth bass in the freshwater rivers and lakes, where I would normally use this size spinning reel. Alright, so this is going to be a mess. Let me get a roll of paper towels. Hang on 1 second. I'm going to go ahead and kind of clean things up a little bit because... And let's see, can we get that off? Alright, this might be a little pain to get this little clip off. Or this little ring off. We'll see. Maybe we can get lucky. I'm not going to be gentle with it. I'm just going to rip it off if I can. Because the only thing that little washer does is it keeps that bearing from coming out with the spool. If you take that old washer off, it ain't going to hurt nothing. Just be aware that there's a bearing under there. And here at Tackle Advisors, we ain't got time for that. Especially since we're doing this live. And I'm just squeezing all the grease and gunk out from here. I don't care what order it is if I disrupt any springs. Alright. One thing nice about the Fuego versus the Epixor, it does incorporate a little rubber seal at the main shaft. And I'll tell you what, there's no doubt in my mind that some of the seals in this reel definitely extend that like new performance. And let's see if we can't. We should have recognized that before we did that. The fact that that screw is bound up a little bit. But again, I'm not trying to waste your time. So you have the little seal right up here. I'm going to take that handle off. And whenever you take the rotor off, any reel from Daiwa that has mag seal, you kind of want to give a little rock a little bit. Hopefully you can pull it out without getting that pinion to come out along with it, because you want it to stay in its place. Come on. This one's pretty rough. This is why I don't do reel repairs. I don't feel like dealing with this stuff all the time. Now I'm looking at that pinion where it comes through the rotor, and it's almost like the rotor's like so tweaked from putting so much pressure on so many different fish that it's almost trying to thread on the rotor. So I got to take a pair of channel locks here and maybe this will make the... Oh yeah, I just felt it. Just let go, I think. Yep, that's what it was. That's awesome. That's pretty cool. I ain't gonna lie. I can't tell you that's common, to be perfectly honest with you. It's because it's not. It truly isn't. That's fairly unique right there. So that gives you an idea how much torque has been put on this thing, I guess is the best way to put it. And again, it doesn't mean it's been torqued on by fish. It could be, you know, that kayak roll that did it in. So I'm not trying to say, oh, the Fuego is going to hold up to sharks, guys. That's not what I'm trying to say. It's just one of those things that, no, I've been in hundreds of reels, and that's very rare that I've ever seen that. Because usually when you put that much pressure, something's going to let go and break, especially on a reel that's made out of a composite versus a metal. So it was pretty cool to see that. From one reel nerd to another, that's pretty cool. You know what? We should take a look here at the mag seal. And you can see, look at that. Before we go any further, that mag seal has seen a lot of exposure. It's one of those things that, man, oh man. Yeah, there's a lot of grit in there. Oh yeah, there's a lot of grit. A lot of shmoo, a lot of grit. A lot of stuff. And the stuff down in here seems to be a little bit cleaner. So that tells me right off the bat that it did its job. And you hear on the internet things about mag seal. Oh, it dries out and it does this and that. If the mag seal dries out, it becomes, I guess the best way to put it becomes like a slippery wax, which is exactly what this is here. It shouldn't give you any problems causing it to get sticky unless it's been contaminated with salt deposits, other oils, solvents and stuff. It does its job, guys. I mean, it's not just marketing. I'm up in the air about how effective it is in the salt environment for the ball bearings, like what you would get in like this reel here that has, mag sealed ball bearings, especially since you can't use the cheap ferro fluid on the bearings. You can use a cheap crap in this area because all it is essentially vegetable oil and ferrite, and it's just got to create a barrier. Now, I'll stop rambling for a second. And if you look here, you can see a tiny bit of corrosion, but we don't know whether or not if water got in past this, or my big gripe with any mag seal reel that doesn't incorporate a screw down hatch, which includes all the non-HD Certates and South that use 2 screws or 3 screws and a cap. Water can get through here. There's no rubber gasket or O-ring over here, so water can get down inside here from here. Now, the anti-reverse clutch is set up a little bit. It sits up high off the bottoms, and even if water did get down in there, it's kind of tricky for it to get up inside. But as it evaporates and tries to escape, that's what it can get up inside of here and get trapped. So I really think Daiwa, when they designed it, they just wanted to keep contaminants out and kind of extend the like-new performance of a very sensitive part being the anti-reverse clutch mechanism, because everybody hates when their reel out of the blue starts spinning backwards. That usually spells the end of the trip for most guys, especially when you have a thread-in handle. And the way Daiwa does their thread-in handle, as opposed to the Shimano reels, the Daiwa one, when it's on there, you're fishing, it's great. But all it takes is just a little bump, and then it's unscrewed. There's no like half turn before it unlocks itself like a Shimano reel. It's just like that much turn and it's out. I wish, partially for that reason, that Daiwa would change the way that the thread-on handle mounts. I wish it was a little bit a wider range before it started to just free spin backwards and come off, especially for guys that go offshore. I had an issue with a Z-Bass reel where I almost lost the handle overboard when we were making a tuna run because it was sitting up in the rocket launchers, just taking a pounding for 100 miles, and luckily it bonked my friend in the head and then decided to hit the gunnel and not go overboard. And then he actually caught it before it hit the ground, if I remember correctly. And that Z-Bass, God, that was a funny reel. It literally started loosening up. The handle stem, when the body loosened up, the rotor screws came out. I was fighting my biggest tuna and my first tuna. This was back in 2009. And I had to take off the spool with I think it was like a 120 pound bluefin, and re-secure the screws using a Leatherman tool. All right, enough of that. Look at all that corrosion. So mag seal was kind of effective up here, and now looking at how this looks inside here, the theory of the water getting up in through this area may not be valid, because there was plenty that got down in the guts of the reel. So we're going to see if we can't get inside here. This is always a little tricky to do on camera, so bear with me. But all in all, the negatives of this reel, I gotta say, do outweigh, I should say, the positives of this reel do outweigh the negatives. I'm staring at this thing thinking negative, because you never want to see this much corrosion. And I don't know if I would be one to recommend using this in saltwater when you have other reels out there. But Elias kind of marches to his own drum, using this size reel for tarpon and redfish and everything else in between. It's a smooth reel. It's lightweight. Does have a little bit of handle stem. When you compare it to the Zion frame Tatula and ballistic, they don't have that handle flex at all whatsoever. And that ball bearing is in no bueno condition. There's a ball bearing that runs the oscillation cam down here, which is one of the reasons why this reel is very, 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 very smooth, because it does have ball bearings everywhere you want. And I don't even know if I'm going to be able to get that off. And you can see there's also, oh, that was an O-ring. I think what's left of it, either that or it's a sandworm. I don't even know what that is. Smells like the ocean. Oh, God. This isn't the first time I've come across reels like this. I'm a surf caster. I used to, I've donned a wetsuit more than a couple times, and Van Stalls, and before Van Stalls, I was fishing other reels that couldn't take the submersion. So I've seen this. It just cracks me up when I see it in a little trout-sized reel. So yeah, it survived Elias. It's not in good shape. It really isn't. But you got to factor in how long it's survived. And I think that's pretty much where I'm going to end this Elias torture example. And we're going to continue down discussing the differences between the Fuego, the Epixor, the lower end model, and then the Tatula. So when you look at the Fuego LT and you're comparing it to the Epixor is the lighter gray color. And again, I grabbed the ballistic. Where's my Fuego? When you're comparing the Fuego LT to the Epixor is a little bit lighter in color, has the gold handle, and it does not have mag seal. That's the big difference. When you compare the two, mag seal, which we went over here at the top of the inverse clutch, is not included with the Epixor. And for freshwater environments, it's not really needed for the most part, because you look at the Tatula versus the ballistic LT, I finally got them right, and that's basically the difference between those two. The other difference between the two, the handle knobs on the Epixor are riveted versus a screw-on handle knob on the Fuego LT. That's a minor difference. Only 10% of the people that would even consider buying a $100 reel would do anything with the handle knobs that require removing it, so whatever. In addition to that, when you compare the Tatula to the Fuego, I gotta say it's a night and day difference. The weight savings is huge. How solid the reel is the differences are night and day. You can put a lot more pressure on bigger fish without any kind of flex whatsoever, to the point where when you go up to the ballistic 6,000, you can use this for some serious fish and put out 10, 12 pounds of drag and actually fish that reel or this reel at those pressures and not really have to worry. And I'm going on an assumption on that because that reel's new to me. I've caught a few bass over 15 pounds on it in current, and I haven't even felt any sort of flex. Rock solid reel so far. And when you compare these two, the $50 or $60 or $70 difference, I'll tell you what, in 2018, with how light they're making these reels, it's a really nice upgrade. And when you can take a 2,000 size like this, put it on an ultralight 5-foot trout rod that weighs 2 ounces, maybe a G. Loomis or a St. Croix or any super ultralight, and upsize from one of those little rinky-dink 500 size reels that the only thing they're good for is causing line twist. Go to that size, it's the same weight, and you don't have those line management issues. Huge bonus when you're dealing with that. Really like this reel for that application. In terms of using this reel in the saltwater, I mentioned how I didn't like the stem flex. When you're winching under any kind of load other than your standard retriever or a smallmouth bass, if you're putting 4 pounds, 5 pounds of drag and you're fighting fish that are capable of buzzing off some line, you're going to feel that handle stem flex. Now, the frame alignment, the frame flex is almost non-existent. Elias did put some serious fish on that Epixor. I sent him some big reds, and I asked him, did you feel like the gear was kind of coming out of the pinion like this? So when you're cranking on that handle, you're turning this. That's what you're turning. Your pinion gear's up here. If the side plate flexes, meaning when you turn the handle, the main gear is always trying to push out away. It's that gear mesh. These are all supposed to be rigidly held in alignment. When you turn that handle under load, the main gear is going to want to roll out and push away from the pinion. The frame is the only thing that's keeping that from happening. You got the frame and side plate here. It's going to want to push out. It's going to want to separate. It's going to want to flex outwards. He did not experience any of that. So when you're fishing a reel that you feel flex, there's two different kinds. The flex that happens here, when you kind of feel it, it feels like crap. It doesn't feel like a good sensation. It feels like your reel's made out of rubber. But as long as this holds up in this area and it's not allowed to flex outward, you're in good shape. So for all intents and purposes, if you're fishing a drag pressure that's not going to blow up the reel and bend the main shaft, you're not fishing at the actual maximum rated drag of the reel, which is just an inflated number on pretty much any reel and not needed unless you're targeting tuna or amberjack and GT, you're going to be in good shape. So when it comes to the $99 price range for a spinning reel, it's interesting to see how the Fuego compares to the BG. And it kind of falls in that same category between this reel and the Fuego because of that huge weight reduction. The BG got to be one of the best $99 reels in the last 20 years. The last time I remember there being a $100 reel that good was the original white Stradic, which was like, I think $105. Had a worm gear oscillation system, great all around. And this BG is, in my opinion, the simpler version of the Stradic with a locomotion level wind, non-worm gear oscillation system, rock solid metal side plates, graphite rotor. The graphite rotors in these size reels are great because it keeps weight down. Can't beat it for $100. But compared to the Fuego, it misses mag seal and it's heavier. And again, the missing part of the mag seal, watch this, I'm going to turn the handle, you're going to be like, oh, it sucks, which it does. See how it locks up? The pinion bearing up here, which is this ball bearing right here, is on its way out. Saltwater got up in there and, yeah, did its thing, which is the same exact thing that happened on, give me a second, this reel, which I just put the review out. And this thing has a mind of its own. One day it's slow, one day it spins freely. So I don't know. This is strange. It was pretty tight the other day, just like that Daiwa, but now today it's been sitting on my bench for the last week. I haven't fished it. I've been fishing a couple other reels. But, you know, we're not getting sidetracked down the Penn Road on this video. So it's one of those things where between the Nasci and the Fuego, throw a dart. Really. You can't beat either of them. They're both similarly made up reels. They're oscillation systems while it's supported by a ball bearing. The Nasci is buttery smooth. The Nasci is a smoother reel than the Fuego. You turn the handle on the Nasci, you know what, it feels better. But it has that hex keyed handle shaft versus the thread on handle. And I like the solid feeling that a threaded on handle gives you versus the hex handle shaft that over time, I don't know what it is about the design that can't nail it down, it does get a little loosey-goosey over time. So for that reason, I kind of like the Fuego, but you can't go wrong with either one. You really can't. That and the Nasci lays line better out of the box than what's been my experience personally with this 2500 size Fuego. So I guess it's with all that being said, there really isn't much more to cover. Other than the fact that it's a good reel. It's not a spectacular reel. I don't put it in the same echelon as the BG, even though it does have more features and more things going for it, like the seal on the side plate, the seal at the main shaft of the rotor, and the mag seal. I still think that when you're comparing this to the $99 Shimano, they're just that much closer, whereas when you compared this to the Socorro SW, the Socorro was just a piece of junk that was $120, where it was literally a lower grade reel than the Nasci, and this just smoked it. But when you're comparing the Nasci to this guy, being that they're so similar, throw a dart. You can't go wrong with either. And at the same time, you can even look at the Okuma Epixor XT, which, hang on a second, of course I got one of them. Which, unfortunately, is exactly missing the things that separate the Fuego and the Nasci. It has that hex keyed handle while having the best line lay out of the both of them and the most rigid frame. And this was a defect out of the box. And if you saw my grumpy unboxing with this reel, it's proven to be an absolutely spectacular reel. And talk about out of left field, I would probably recommend this over the Nasci and the Fuego LT. But man, I thought the defect was in the casting of one of the parts that run the oscillation system. But it wasn't. Okuma sent me the replacement parts. I popped them in there. It wasn't. It's just the over-tightening of screws is what caused that problem, which means there's something going on other than shimming that I'm not aware of and I can't fix by myself. So every time I've been fishing this reel, it's been super tight. I mean, this is as loose as I've gotten it. But damn, is this a damn good reel if it wasn't for that. And I haven't been able to fish another one of these reels, just being tied up with so many different projects. I haven't been, I'll send me an email today, get a replacement. Maybe they will. In addition to that, you can see this kind of paint damage up here. When this shipped in the mail, the handle was collapsed up against here in the box, and the shipping clang, 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 clang kept on bashing it, so it damaged that. But that's cosmetics, not a big deal. But the oscillation, look how slow that spool rise and fall is. Best caster out of the bunch in terms of line management. It performs beautifully. Line lay is perfect, even with ultralight braid. It's a little bit heavier, I believe, than the Fuego and the Nasci. It's just as smooth, but here's the kicker. It's got a cast zinc main gear, which is exactly what you have in the Fuego, which is this guy here, but it's smaller. The Fuego's main gear is pretty darn big, and the Nasci is forged aluminum. So you get a premium main gear, and you can call this a premium main gear. It's cast zinc, but it's a Daiwa oversized gear. This one's a little tinier, a little smaller. But it has to be mentioned that in this $99 price range, should you get a good reel, it's not a defect out of the box. Very, very nice reel. And I'll tell you what, that's a nice looking reel. I don't like making a big deal out of cosmetics, but it's a dope looking reel. And I'm a sucker for carbon fiber. I really am. And that's not paint. That's actual carbon fiber. Pretty. Really nice looking reel. And the bail actuation, if you saw my unboxing, after about 15 outings of use, 20 outings, about 15. Maybe even less. I didn't put as much time on this reel as some of the other ones because I was like, oh, I hated this. But that's, I like the feel of that over the Stella. I said it in the review video, or the unboxing video, I should say, that I did like it and prefer it to the Stella back then. And after quite a bit of use, not quite a bit, a decent amount of use, I can still say the same thing. That is the best feeling freshwater bail. Damn. And it's an Okuma. So, it's with that bombshell, I'm going to cut things off here. And for you guys out there finding me for the first time, do me a favor and check out some of the past content I've put out. I think you'll find I do things a little bit differently. And if you like what you see, then subscribe. And for you guys that have been with me for a while, for you guys that have made it this far, I greatly appreciate every second of every minute you guys spend here, because without you, I wouldn't have a platform to stand on. And I greatly thank you for all the time you guys spend here. And until next time, guys, tight lines, and want me to give away this reel? Holy shit. Whew. Dude's a beast.